be a roll call, Mike, please? Oh, he's on the phone.
I'm trying to get the mayor an invite.
Okay. Just for your information, both the mayor and the council president are away, so I'm just filling in tonight for this meeting.
Roll call, and then I'll see when you like. All right, bye-bye. That was Mayor Fender on the phone, so she's just trying to get logged in.
Okay.
Some technical problem, so, Councilor Thompson,
Here.
Councilor Moore,
Here.
Councilor Ochoa,
Here.
Councilor Manal,
Here.
Councilor Paulson, who's online.
Here.
Can you hear me, Councilor? Councilor Petrie.
Here.
Then we have Mayor Fender who's going to be trying to log on line. I think she's on now. Ron, if you can promote her to panelist. There we go. We have you now, Mayor. Go ahead, Councilor Petrie. We have 7 present.
Okay. So on our agenda, we were going to have a short presentation from our state representative, Courtney Neron, but she's not able to be here tonight. So I think Ronnie has a couple of slides that she wanted us to take a look at, and she'll be here probably at a meeting in August, is the
I
plan.
think September.
September?
Sorry, correct, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
September 6th. Is
Okay.
when we're gonna try to have her here for a presentation, but she did want to share, the last 2 slides of her presentation. Ronnie could possibly pull up for us here. I think it involves some of the legislative items as well as what she was able to do for King City, which was acquire, about $137,000 to help us redo our park pathway, that we are going to resurface this next year. Part of, I think the reason that we were successful here is work by, Rev. Neron, her staff, as well as our staff, on a lot of the pre-planning, engineering, and the reports for this. This has been a couple of years in the making. We tried for it, like 2 years ago, we tried for it last year, and then we tried to get it this year. And, thanks to Rev. Neron's support, we successfully navigated it, and they were able to secure this. It's, I think, part of the Christmas tree bill, that was passed by the state legislature. So we're really excited to get that pathway project off the ground and move forward this next year. And then I think she wanted to share the thoughts on the tolling piece, which I'm not very familiar with, but I do know that ODOT has been working on the tolling on 205, as well as other areas, I-5 and others, and they've been going through a long study on that. They were planning on enacting the tolling project here in the very near future and start moving forward with that. It looks like they were able to put a pause on that to do some further studies and refining the findings on that. I believe one of the main concerns was the rerouting of traffic from main highway systems in and through the local street networks, through Tigard, Lake Oswego, and Westland and Oregon City. So a lot of that would have been cut through those main city centers on streets not trying to handle those traffic. So that was one of the main concerns, diversion from the main highway systems into the local street network. So I think ODOT is taking a deeper look on that, as well as how the funding is dispersed. So part of the tolling project also limited how those monies would be applied and where those monies would be applied, and it only put like within a quarter mile of the highway system. And so part of the pushback from the mayors and administrators throughout Washington County, Clackamas, and Multnomah were that those funds needed to be further reaching, because those traffic impacts were going to be further reaching, and we would need those revenues to help bolster our local street networks, which is going to basically shoulder all that diversion from the tolling project. So I think they're taking a deeper dive on that, a deeper look, and we'll probably see this resurface in a few months. I think those were the two main points that Rev. Neron had asked me to give in her stead, since she can't make it today, but she will be making it in September to give a more thorough. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, then we will now move on to open forum tonight. At this time, council will be happy to receive your comments pertaining to items on the agenda, with the exception of public hearings for which testimony will be received, which has already been received, under the terms of the public hearings that we've already had. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes. So as a reminder, we are not taking any comments on the transportation system plan or on the master plan. So any other comments you'll have to make would be welcome. You're limited again to 3 minutes. I see one hand up. Yeah, I saw Viva. Okay, Viva, you want to go ahead?
Thank you. I am Viva Gaylor, 12700 Southwest Beef Bend Road. I actually have 2 topics, but I can do it in 3 minutes. I want to give a tourism report. The 4th of July festival that we had meets the tourism of the 4 A's: attractive, accessible, accommodating, and I can't read my own writing. And we met all those. I want to thank Smart and Mary for helping me blow up balloons because I had a huge time. I want to thank Shauna for talking her lovely daughter Taylor into coming and being my balloon intern, because I know she did a little arm twist. And I want to also invite anyone to come to a meeting August 13th at the park. That's a Sunday at 5 o'clock to plan the next 4th of July festival and talk about what we did wrong, what we could do better, and what we will do again. Now I'm going to put another hat on, and I would like to bring up the topic that I brought up a few times before. In the parade, we had one of the big lugs of Tualatin High School's teams, and 6 years ago, I suggested that we should have a high school person on the planning committee. That is how you get youth involved. And it was my high school classmate, Gretchen, who, when I said we should get some kids involved, she says the small cities recommends the planning commission. So I would like to recommend that we get that on the agenda, or if we need some help, maybe get some volunteers to coordinate with Tualatin High School so we can get youth on it, because being in my mid-70s, I'm not the future. The kids are. Thank you, thank you, King City, and I hope to see Tualatin High School students on our planning commission soon. And I want to invite everybody to help us with next year's 4th of July festival. I think I did it in 3 minutes.
You had 45 seconds.
Good job. I think you're next.
Thank you. I'm Gary Mitchell, live in King City on 13350 Southwest King Lear Way. The comments I'd like to make tonight deal with the King City Municipal Code changes that dealt with changes for noise ordinance. Now, I believe it's under review by the Planning Commission. I suggest that King City staff review and consider incorporating wording from Beaverton and/or Tigard noise ordinances and not rely solely on decibel level measurements. Noise disturbance guidelines in the Beaverton and Tigard codes take this into account. For example, Tigard wording includes terms such as unnecessarily loud, means any sound that interferes with normal spoken communication or that disturbs sleep. And the Beaverton ordinance also includes any noise that unreasonably interferes with peace and comfort of residents, and also any noise that disturbs the quiet, comfort, or response of reasonable individuals of ordinary sensitivities, or if the sound is after certain allowed hours in the proximity of a sleeping facility. So I'll give this to Ronnie. The rest of this is just excerpts from the Beaverton Noise Ordinance. But I think just having a very prescriptive ordinance based on decibel levels alone is really not adequate. It needs to be a little more general. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to share these pictures. My name is Dan Brenner. I live on River. The Tualatin River is 83 miles long, from its beginning in the Coast Range to where it empties in the Tualatin to the Willamette River. It happens to be Washington County's only river. If you look at it on Google Earth, it's a very windy river. You'd also notice that it's in entirety, there are really no highways or collector streets that closely parallel the river. There are many neighborhoods along it, especially from about mile 15 to Lake Oswego. Plenty of bridges across the river, but the main roads next to it rarely exist. There has to be a reason or two for this, one of them being the potential for erosion. These pictures, excuse me, these pictures are of the River Ridge Apartments on 99W, just upstream from the bridge on 99. The complex is on 9 acres, was completed in 2017. I took the erosion picture in August of 2018. As you can see, the large wall of the bank that fell into the river was later sloped in order to be planted for stability. As you can see, the erosion is continuing to this day right next to what they repaired. It's still sloughing off into the river. So I can only imagine the impact and damage that any road running along the river will cause.
Is there, okay, one more? Oh, and okay, two more, okay. And Ronnie, let me know if there's any hands raised on mine as well, okay? Yeah.
Mike Meyer, 16950 Southwest Meyer Lane, Tigard. I have surprisingly complaints regarding the planning commission. From the municipal code, the commission shall consist of 7 voting members to be appointed by the mayor with the consent and approval of the city council. Each member shall be appointed for a term of 4 years. John Walter resigned on March 10th. I've got a copy of his resignation letter. In part, he says, I have felt that the planning process on using Fisher was flawed from the start. I have waited for the consultants to take notice of the strong opposition to Fisher, and that they would come up with a different analysis centered around making Beef Bend a much better road, as well as making the intersection of Beef Bend and Highway 99 better. He told me in an email he just didn't want his name associated with the Fisher Road extension. I was dismissed on March 15th, 5 days later. 5 days later, from municipal code, a member of this commission may be removed by the appointing authority after hearing for misconduct or non-performance of duty. Neither one was established. Incomprehensibly, 2 additional vacancies resulted from a June 1st term expirations that no one seemed to be paying attention to. One being the commission chair Paulson, the other Joe Casanova, which shows the term expiration of June of 26 on the King City website, and he was appointed to a 4-year term in February of 22. Statements made regarding the term expiration and dates don't seem to jive. Joe told me he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. The June 28th Planning Commission Community Development Code hearing only had 3 commissioners left. Mr. Wesson tried to explain how the 3 left constituted a quorum. From the municipal code, 4 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum for the conduct of business by the commission. A vote of the majority of the quorum shall be necessary for action by the commission on any matter before it. You can't just not fill the vacancies indefinitely. The Planning Commission had 2 very important recommendations to consider in the Transportation System Plan and the Master Plan, yet the council was content to have less than a full complement of city representatives to render those recommendations. 4 of 7, I believe, for both. From municipal code, vacancies on the commission shall be filled by appointment by the mayor with the consent and approval of the council. A person appointed to fill a vacancy shall serve the remaining term of the office vacated. You have 4 vacancies to fill. Past practice has been to notify the residents of a vacancy and ask for applications with a deadline to apply by. 3 weeks later, a reminder notice is sent. An interview and possible appointment is scheduled for a council meeting. This has been your past practice. The Gauthier-Ron Johnson appointment was a disaster, spread out over months. You all had to come up with interview questions on the second attempt, and there was discussion to revamp the process, but that didn't happen. In today's case, we have a surprise interview and possible appointment without an opportunity for residents of the community to apply. How is it that these 2 individuals are given a special opportunity? This is a mess, has been a mess, and I think you all need to take action to clean it up.
Okay, thank you.
Greg Russell, 14100 Southwest River Lane in Tigard. I appreciate the fact that all of you have volunteered your time as a counselor to give advice and counsel to King City as it strives to deal with the growth and the development. Everyone likes the annual King City Blood Drive, the recycling efforts, and the 4th of July parade, but these events do not reflect the long-term decisions that will impact residents for years. What I would recommend is that each of you take a few minutes to reflect on why King City government has had such a poor reputation with the residents of Edgewater, King City, and Rivermead. There certainly is a lack of trust in city government. Many citizens and nonprofit organizations have given constructive advice and recommendations over the past 5 years, and that advice has essentially been ignored. You can do better, much better, by not only listening to your constituents, but acting upon their advice. Remember who you are representing. Thank you.
All right. Are there any others? One more?
Sure. Hi, I'm Randy Olson. I live at 13509 Southwest Fisher. I don't know, Fisher? King Lear Lane. Thank you, Mayor Fender and council members, and thank you for your time and your hard work. But in my opinion, council and mayor have failed the citizens they represent by ignoring overwhelming oppositions expressed in surveys, community meetings, and testimony. They failed to recognize the detrimental financial and quality of life implications of a regional
I
collective.
think, sir, I'm sorry, but you're leaning into the public
I'll leave it at
testimony
that,
line.
if I
So
could get a little
do
leeway.
you have something else you would like to?
Well, I would say
comment on?
it's interesting and telling that, they decided to delay the tolling on 205 because of the cut-through issue, which, that's the big complaint on the whole Fisher Road extensions. It looks like it's gonna be a cut-through. I believe it's 40% of the traffic, and there'll be thousands of cars. It's interesting that we could take their lead. I know we're all doing our best, but I would think each level of government you go higher, there's a little more expertise and a little more thoughtfulness in the decisions.
Okay.
Well, okay, then maybe everything else, I'm out in the gray area, but,
Okay.
well, I'll just close with, the city council may have thought this was a settled matter, but it's not until all legal challenges have been exhausted and the community says it's over. This is something that's really at the heart of the community. So thank you for your time and your work, and I'll let you guys do.
Thank you. Are there any other folks wishing to provide commentary? Okay.
Is there anyone online?
No, anyone online? No? Okay. All right, then. That will close our open forum. At this point, we will be moving into the business part of our meeting. And this is, today we have scheduled a continuation of a legislative land use hearing related to adoption of the King City Terrace Master Plan. The hearing format for this proceeding is different than quasi-judicial land use proceedings, though members of the public provide testimony in the same manner. Members of the public were afforded the opportunity to participate in person, in writing, or both. All written materials have been submitted to the city recorder and have been made part of the record of the proceedings. All testimony was officially closed on July 7th, 2023. The grounds for an appeal of a legislative decision are contained in ORS Chapter 197, specifically ORS 197.620. At this time, the City Council will reconvene for deliberation and the second reading of Ordinance 2023-02 and 2023-03 on this date at 5:22. Mr. Webster, will you provide a reading of the ordinances by short title only?
Ordinance 2023-02, an ordinance considering the land use file 23-02 Kingston Terrace Master Plan. And our second ordinance under consideration is Ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance considering the land use file 2303, amending the King City Comprehensive Plan to support the Kingston Terrace Master.
Okay. All right. I call to order the public hearing regarding ordinances 2023-02, an ordinance considering the adoption of Kingston Terrace Master Plan Land Use File 23-02, and ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance amending the King City Comprehensive Plan, updating and amending deficiencies to support the Kingston Terrace Master Plan. And that is at 5:25. This is a legislative hearing, so we do not follow the strict ex parte disclosure requirements. But does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the City Council to hear this matter? I see none. Does any member of the council want to disclose any actual or potential conflicts of interest?
I have a statement. So I don't feel that I have a positive or negative impact on my property. Feel that there are no roads that directly impact the road I live on, which is 136, and or affect my property. I am a licensed Oregon real estate broker. However, I have not been active in real estate since I got my license. I have not had any contact with any developers that might or might not develop a project in Kingston Terrace. At the present time, I have no financial interest or ownership in any property within Kingston Terrace, nor do I have any clients that have any interest in property in Kingston Terrace. Therefore, I have no financial gain or loss due to my position as a counselor with King City. Thank you.
Does any member of the audience?
Councilor Paulson and Mayor Fender have their hands up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
This is Mayor Fender. I'll just go first. So I live on Capulet Lane within the Edgewater community. Capulet Lane is a road that exists currently, and I don't believe that any potential future extension of Capulet Lane is going to bear any financial impact positively or negatively, and it certainly isn't going to I don't believe it causes any current or apparent, or I don't believe there's any conflict. So I put that on the record because I have done so at the past two proceedings, and my opinion of the matter stays the same. Thanks.
Councilor Paulson?
Hi there. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to note that I do not believe that I have any conflict either financial or personal, with any of the decision making being made. I did want to bring up, though, that it has recently been suggested that a photo of me and my family included in the Metropolitan Land Group website is evidence of a conflict of interest. I want to note that I have never knowingly had any business dealings with Metropolitan Land Group. The photo in question was taken for a King City mailer, and to my recollection, it was taken prior to my involvement with the city council. It was part of a volunteer photo session for the city, and I was unaware of it ever being used for Metropolitan Land Group promotions until it was brought up earlier this week. I just want to make sure that that's on the record. I do not believe that I have any conflicts in this matter.
Thank you. The next question would be, does any member of the audience wish to challenge any individual member of the city council? All right, I see none. As a reminder, public testimony on this matter has been closed. If you do not raise an issue previously, you will be unable to raise that issue at a subsequent time on appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the criteria that staff have described or other criteria in the plan or land use code which you believe apply to the decision. Failure to have specifically addressed the approval criteria that staff have described will also preclude the raising of an issue related to those criteria on appeal. At this time, City Council will hear from staff and consultants. Following the close of public testimony on June 21st and June 27th, respectively, does the staff have any updates to present to the City Council?
I believe there's like 3 items that the council had pointed out last time following the comments that we had received. And I'm going to just hand it off to our consultant, Steve Foss with 3J, kind of discuss what we did to address those 3 or 4 items and pass it off.
Thank you, councilors. As Mike said, Steve Foss with 3J Consulting in Beaverton. Since the last city council hearing, we've made a few updates to the materials. The Kingston Terrace Master Plan was updated to correct errors in the numbering of figures and tables, both in the body of the document and in the table of contents. Those are the only changes that were made to the master plan. We've added some information to the staff report to the findings regarding Myers Riverside Airport, since it was raised as a concern. The city has offered to establish a private use airport safety overlay zone upon the request of the property owner in accordance with Oregon rules and statutes. And finally, we addressed a few discrepancies between the Kingston Terrace Master Plan and the comprehensive plan that were brought to our attention at the public. The 3 items that.
Okay. Anything else from staff?
I think really at the end of the last public hearing, we had basically closed the public testimony piece. We did receive a retraction letter from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife in your packet at the end of the city council comment. C9, I believe, Ronnie, can you just verify? Hang on 1 second, I'll just verify it for you. Was it C9? Yeah, so we got a letter from Director Mulcher with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife disavowing the opinion and retracting their letter that was sent out by one of their staffers following a float on the Tualatin River. So that letter is then under C9, and that was the only addition before the July 7th deadline for agency comments that the council set.
Do any councilors have any questions for staff? Online?
I do have a question.
I'm not seeing any hands raised. No? Okay, no.
Oh, yeah, does anybody else have questions?
What?
I don't love going first sort of thing. I don't remember if it was at the last meeting or the meeting before, that the intersection of 99 and Fisher Road came up. I know that there's only so much we can do, because 99 is not our road. But I'm thinking about, having 2 right turn lanes. Is that anything we can include in our master plan or not, since it's not a city?
So technically, the transportation system plan modeling that was done, but it was part of the alternative studies, I think, that Ann Sylvester and FCJ Alliance had done as part, function of the traffic and transportation studies that also informed the master plan. With that, though, the intersection of Fisher and 99W is actually outside of our purview, and that's why it's not identified in our transportation system plan as an improvement that we would do or undertake. It's actually ODOT or Washington County, and it is, I believe, in the regional transportation plan of Washington County. So,
That's right. So the most we can do on that is advocate.
yeah, we can advocate for, instead of that, for some reason, the regional plan calls for the 2 right lanes, and I believe that what we should do is, as a city, advocate for 2 left lanes.
2 left.
Yeah.
And not 2 right lanes. It's not our intersection, and it's not our project, but it is something that we can advocate for when and if that project rises to a level of being funded.
Okay, I just wanted to triple check that I understood that part of it. Oh, I'm really on the wrong page. So I think not of the packet, but of the presentation. Okay, so page 26 of the packet, and without my external mouse. We've got multiple page numbers. This is about density. So in here somewhere it said that the housing needs assessment indicated that we're good to go, but then it also, oh, here it is. So it's on, oh, I was really off. It looks like it's on page 32 of the packet. Well, essentially there's something in here that I need to probably find in a better way, that says that it says the current planning meets the needs, but it also says we'll need to plan for more housing. And that was a little confusing, because I'm like, well, where? Where are we gonna do that? And I did find it. It's at the top of page 18 or page 34 of the packet. So the page number on the bottom says 18, and it's 34 of the packet. It's the very top.
Right.
It says we're meeting our obligation to plan for needed housing types for households at all income levels, and we'll need to plan for more single-family attached and multifamily dwelling units in the future to meet the city's housing needs. I don't totally understand. I just.
Okay, found it?
Yeah, I don't have the housing needs analysis in front of me, but my reading of that and recollection is that what that is saying is that the HNA is planning for needed housing types. So the city has achieved that goal. And what the HNA found in that planning effort was that the city is going to need more attached and multifamily dwellings. So it reads poorly. I apologize for that. So it sounds like it's 2 contradictory statements. But I believe that what it's saying is that the housing needs analysis was adopted and is meeting the city's obligation to plan for needed housing. And what those needed housing types are, or one of the findings of that housing needs analysis, is that more single-family attached and multifamily dwelling units are needed in the build-out.
Okay.
I think I can. So our housing needs analysis was done in 2018, and at that point, if you looked at the housing mix in King City, housing density per square mile is actually 30% higher than the city of Orleans, which is always a stat that I've just found unexpected. So what they had found as far as the housing types, so, you know, because you guys have a real good mix of apartments and townhomes, and we were meeting the needs. But that because we were out of land, at that point, I think our capacity was something like 32 additional dwellings, under 50, that we would need. So they were like, well, you're out of land, and in order to meet your future mandates, you're not going to be able to do it within your existing city. So we're not a city that had a lot of open land or like a house on 5 acres. So that, it was that housing needs analysis and buildable land inventory that led to us seeking the urban growth boundary in the future, because we were out of land. And then since the 2018 housing needs analysis, the Oregon House passed House Bill 2001, which said, in addition to single-family houses, which there are neighborhoods in King City, you know, kind of exclusive single-family houses, that they need to allow attached housing as well, like the quote-unquote housing. And so we updated our city code to reflect that, knowing that in existing King City, there wouldn't really be any opportunity for that because you have any dirt. So that's they will need more in the future, dates back to 18, and right. So we're not looking for another. We won't be looking necessarily for another UGB expansion for quite some time, I would hope, as long as I'm city attorney.
That is helpful, and you actually kind of answered one of my other questions, which was about House Bill 2001, because I know that had some density requirements in it, and it seems like our master plan meets those requirements. And along with that, I just want to acknowledge goes parking, and we actually, we aren't required to provide a certain level of parking for some of these areas that will be developed. That's tough, but I see that our hands are tied there. Is that right?
So
we can't override the parking.
With cottage cluster, which is the element of they limit the number of parking spots that you can require, but they don't necessarily prevent a developer from having parking.
Okay.
So practically speaking, in jurisdictions that I represent or have seen that have adopted House Bill 2001, there's a general recognition that if you don't have a certain level of off-street parking, it's not going to be attractive to buyers. And so practically speaking, I really haven't seen any change in that. Other than the city can't require parking unless the ADU is a short-term rental, in which case the city can. How you would know that when it gets built, I have no idea. But because the largest lots allowed in King City by right are 5,000 square feet, there really aren't the opportunities for ADUs that there would be in other cities where 5,000 square feet is the minimum in R1 neighborhood.
And then,
Before you get into your next question, maybe give you a couple minutes to think on it, but I also want to elaborate on how goaltend kind of works and what the city's requirements are as part of the House Bill 2001, 2003, is we also have to do a housing needs analysis every 5 years, I think, is the requirement. So we're due now to do another housing needs analysis in the next year or so. But the way goaltend works is that the city is required to plan for 20 years worth of growth. And so our urban growth boundary is supposed to, the possibility or the capability to grow for 20 years. And if we get to a point where the housing needs analysis is done and we don't have enough space within our urban growth boundary, then we have to look outside that. And so I don't see that happening in my time here, but, you know, it could happen after like 20 years or 15 years down the road, if everything is developed out and there's no more buildable land.
Okay.
So that's just kind of throw that out there, just so you know kind of what requirements cities are faced with.
And then thank you, how do assisted living facilities factor into density? Are they considered apartments? Are they not factored in at all?
They would be multifamily
Okay.
because you have a variety of unrelated residents all in one spot.
Okay. I have more questions, but does anyone else want to ask any before I continue?
Maybe yours will spur more questions.
Okay. So, okay. I should probably start sweating it off. So the airport overlay, that's not done yet, right?
Right, so, I recently did an airport overlay in another jurisdiction that had a, privately owned public airport. And so I looked at, those criteria, and then, I mean, the goal in this is that the Oregon legislature, recognizes, like, airplane flight is important, mode of transportation. So, and it's to keep things safe. So that would apply to that property. And, we would craft something similar to the Oregon Department of Aviation reviewed the, overlay in the other jurisdiction, and they approved it. So I would go back to them and use that as a base. And the question that I can't answer is, and that would be specific to that property, it wouldn't necessarily impact the properties around it. The question that I can't answer, because Metro's land use attorney has been out of town, is whether that parcel would be counted in the net developable acres for the purposes of our density.
Okay.
Because the way it's been written in other jurisdictions for aircraft overlay, it contemplates one dwelling, unless it's kind of a private public airport where those are the ones that have like 20 houses on the runway. Well, 20 houses and then a hangar in front of the houses on the runway, so that the people that live at the airport are really the people that are using the airport. So other than that, they generally contemplate a very limited amount of residential. So I would need to consult with Metro just for the purposes of the count. But that's something that we would bring. And I've spoken with that property owner's attorney, and they want us to proceed with that. So, so we'll probably be bringing back language. In the future. And then, again, we'd want to, I don't think that we count is net developable acres once it's got the overlay on top of it. But I want to verify that with Metro because they're
So I have a question on the airport overlay. So does it matter how much it does or does not air traffic go into that airstrip, or is it, that doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of factors that we would look at are things like the runway and the amount of traffic. And my understanding is that there isn't currently a plane that's being stored on that site, but that people occasionally fly to that site in their planes. So it's not open to the public, it's only open by invitation. But apparently it gets, he didn't specify how many, but on it, traffic.
Okay, for me, some of the most interesting parts are down the road a ways. When we're talking about the town center and design and all of that, we haven't reached that point yet, right?
No, we're along with that point.
Yeah, okay,
You have both, you have the skeleton, well, not yet, it'll be passed once the code. You'll have kind of like the skeleton, And then as far as like the design components and that sort of thing, that would happen as part of that. It's actually the next thing. So it's the code with the zoning, and then after that, if you guys want to do beyond the clear and objective standards, then some design where you might spec things like materials or the amount of glazing on buildings, those sort of things happen.
I'll just talk a little bit about the urban design guidebook. That was a function of our master plan. That's actually one of the many elements that help guide some of the policies that you see in the master plan. So the master plan is essentially the policy controlling document that refers to the regulatory documents, such as the Kingston Terrace Community Development Code amendments that we're proposing that are going to the Planning Commission next week. And part of that is the design review components, the urban design components that are in the guidebook, like how you have your setbacks or your settings and how the heights of the buildings may be set back to allow some solar infiltration and keep those settings on the streetscape a little more personable. There's a lot of best practices that are wrapped into that design guidebook that was adopted as part of this master planning process and is also referenced in here and mentioned and referenced as a function of the CDC. So I think he probably has.
I was just gonna say, it's actually a part of the TSP, but it's referenced in the master plan.
Oh, so it's referenced in the TSP as well.
Yeah.
All right. So it's captured in multiple different governing documents that this body has been adopting through legislative process. So the transportation system plan being adopted last month, that's one of those policy documents, legislative policy documents that will inform and guide future development throughout the Kingston Terrace and the King City development areas.
But you'll have an opportunity to distill those best practices down to the ones you're actually adopting.
And that was my main question, because I mean, I see all of the basics in here, and the basics are very detailed still, but I wanted to make sure that we weren't missing an opportunity to do some of that other work. The same question, and I think it's probably gonna be the exact same answer, about parks, and then about, like, if we have certain requirements for street trees or that sort of thing. Parks, when I see on, like on page, the map's in here a few different times with the park, so I'm looking at page 14 of the packet, page 30 of the entire presentation. When I see community park, park blocks and all of that, we still have an opportunity to get to details, right? Because park might mean, to some people, it might mean we're leveling everything and it's gonna be a track. And to other people, it might mean, oh no, we're just gonna have trails go through. So
Yeah, so
that's still coming.
the way that parks are going to happen is that, so some developments will have a park in development, and they may also, or likely will also have to pay into SDCs. And then when the SDCs reach a certain level, that will allow the city to buy property for a park. And I think that, you know, there's two types of parks. There's a park that may have a bunch of baseball fields or softball fields on it that are very active and bring people from the community out. And then there are other parks that are a passive park, like a Tryon Creek Park, if you've been there, Mary S. Young, or any of those where Mary S. Young has some sports fields, but there are a lot of trails and natural areas for people to just kind of wander where they don't hear the noise of like pickleball or tennis or Little League. And so that you'll have the opportunity to, we know the number of acres, we have an idea of the number of acres that are going to be in park, but as far as what elements those parks have, we have broad discretion. And again, things like facades, I mean, if you've been to Fishers, Oregon, you know then that a city can come up with, like, one of the things you can still regulate kind of how you want is exterior elements like facades to have, if you want a uniform look, you can have a uniform look. If you don't want a uniform look, there are ways to craft that too. And that's where they have a lot of discretion. And then the public often feel pretty strongly about this thing.
I think planning, that's one of the good things about organized planning is it does give you that, theme element so that you can actually develop those in your code or your design code and keep it in character for your community if you want. It takes some forethought up front on how you want to correct that theme. And maybe there's some community input and buy-in along the way on that. And I think the code stuff that's coming down the pathway right now is definitely an opportunity for that. Or we can even look into building a design theme even after the initial code is laid into place. So that way we build onto that design theme for years to come.
Thank you. I just really wanted to hash those things out and make sure that we all understood what's next and that.
Even though it might feel like we're close to the finish line because it's been 6 years,
Yeah.
we're really not close to the finish line because we have to next adopt the code. And then as far as the design standards go, and then as SDCs get paid and things get built, then there'll be those opportunities to have those parks and other amenities. And some of that will help be determined by the future residents too. I mean, the good news is some of the land that's in park in our plan is central to King City, so it will be able to serve existing and future. We'll both be able to come towards it. But some of the parks that are further west that primarily users are likely going to be the new.
Yeah, I would also just touch on that as well, like when we get a development application for areas, they would have the opportunity to either pay the full system development charge for those parks, which is on a per unit cost, which would then give us the bank to go buy and build a park, or the developer could choose to build a park with our governing design criteria implemented into it, which are what you find in the master plan with the different types of community parks. And so with that park map, it's like somewhere within this area, a quarter mile, we're gonna need this type of park. Somewhere within this area, we're gonna need this type of park. And so those are the kind of governing elements that are in the legislative document that the council is considering today. But then what ends up happening later on is either the developer develops them and gets the SDC credit so that they don't have to pay that money up front, or they pay the money up front and then the city buys the land and then develops that land. And to be honest, we prefer if the developer takes the initiative and designs and incorporates that park into their development plan, because it's just a simpler process from our standpoint with less administrative overhead. But of course, there is the maintenance and upkeep of those parks that fall later on. But it's definitely a process. But having these elements captured here in a broad sense allows us to then apply those on a more distinct and direct level when those development permits come in.
That's my list.
Is that your list? Okay. Do either of our counselors online have any questions for staff?
None here.
Okay, so I'm not hearing any more questions then. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Manella. Call for a roll call vote.
So Mayor Fender fell off, she texted me, she's gonna try to call back in, it looks like she's on. I'm getting it. But, all right, so Councilor Paulson, since you're online, the motion is to close the public hearing and move to,
I vote yes.
This is Mayor Fender. I vote yes.
Councilor Choli.
Yes.
Councilor Manal.
Yes.
Councilor Thompson.
Voting on closing the public hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Moore.
Yes.
Councilor Petrie.
Yes.
And now closed.
Yep, officially declare it closed. Today's date at 5:58. Okay, thanks. All right, council, we are now into the conversation part of this, and does anyone want to make a motion before we start deliberation, or do you want to just have conversation first?
I don't care, whatever you prefer.
Either way.
Okay. Is there a motion? Does anyone have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance 202302.
And
There's two of them.
Yep, an ordinance considering the land use file 202302, Kingston Terrace Master Plan. And ordinance 202303, an ordinance considering land use file 2303, amending the King City Comprehensive Plan to support the Kingston Terrace Master Plan.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
This is
No, we've got our second, so that motion by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Manella. So now we will have discussion. Who would like to go first?
Anyone online?
Councilor Fender or Mayor Fender or Councilor Paulson, either of you like to contribute to the discussion?
This is Jamie. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of respond to kind of and just make kind of this one general statement, and I'll make it brief tonight. And I apologize that I'm not there with you guys in person. We are out of town for a family wedding, so I appreciate everyone bearing with me joining virtually. So the only thing I want to kind of just respond to is this notion that we as a council or me individually or even as a city have not listened to individuals within the community, the opinions, organizations, all of that. And I think I'd just like to recall that to everyone that this has been an extremely long process with a very robust public outreach, right? I have made statements for the last several years about areas where I think we could have done better, areas where I thought that we did well, room for improvement, right? Things that if we could have gone back, we would have changed, right? We also had COVID. I mean, I think we just, right? We've had I'm not going to belabor the point because we've talked about it a lot. But one thing that I reject is this notion that because we are not agreeing with some of, and again, I'm just going to throw opposition out there as a catch-all because, right, there's divergent opinions across the board, but it's hard to articulate correctly. So by opposition, I just mean those who have concern, who don't like the plan, who reject it outright, who, right, think that there's parts of it that are good, but not others. And the reality is that simply because me personally, that I don't agree with the opinions of some individuals and their concerns does not mean that I have not listened to them or thought about them critically or evaluated them. And I just simply reject this notion that because we don't agree with the opposition, if you will, that we haven't listened. And in fact, years ago now, not only did we listen, but we halted the entire process to have the paid experts that we spent in a large amount of money on behalf of the city to review and evaluate and look at the alternatives. And we did that because of the overwhelming kind of response that we were getting, that people were concerned that, right, that they were concerned about the road, they were concerned about impacts and so forth. And so we as a council decided to stop, to pause, and to look at alternatives. And I don't think that there's a better example of listening to the constituents' concerns by delaying over a year and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars additionally to make sure that we have it right. And my personal issue with a lot of the, quote, opposition is that people are advocating for their own personal interests. I have said this from the beginning, and I will continue to say this. And a neutral third-party expert who provides us documented, researched, evaluated opinions, their conclusions weigh more for me than someone who has a personal interest and wants to change the outcome so it benefits them personally. And therefore, right, I think while I acknowledge that we could have taken steps to make this all have gone a little more smoothly, perhaps in the beginning, we could have done some outreach differently. I still think that it's difficult for those who found out about the plans that, right, the master plan overlaying their property, if they found out in the newspaper, that was unfortunate. I think that was a misstep. However, I stand by the ultimate plan that we have come up with. I think it's comprehensive. I think there are some phenomenal things that are going to come out of it, and therefore, I'm just frustrated. This has been a very long process, and I know everyone is there, but I just reject this notion that we're all not listening. We're burying our heads in the sand, and right, we don't care about our community of which we are living in and are a part of. And that's all I'm going to say tonight. So I thank everyone's time, and I know, right, this has been a long road. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor Fender. Next, Councilor Paulson.
I apologize. I'm in a difficult spot right now and cannot comment, but I would like to say that my feelings on this are similar to Mayor Fender's. And I believe I've expressed myself in the past during the transportation systems plan as well as far as how I feel about this planning process. But I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of on top of that too, in talking with a lot of citizens and constituents in King City, I think the overall plan is liked. It was the transportation plan, the one part of the system that plan that there was dislike of. So to me, the overall master plan, it seems like a lot of work and hard work and effort went into it with staff and consultants. But I think the majority of constituents feel maybe the overall plan is good, or at least, because a lot of them hear a lot too that they don't want growth, but they know it has to happen. So, all I need.
A lot of the constituents that I talk to have never been in this room. And those are the people whose voices I referenced before that aren't heard. I took a lot of flack for that online. It was apparently the stupidest thing an elected official has ever said, that they indeed do represent to the voices of people who are not able or willing to speak for themselves. I disagree with that. I think that the role of an elected official is to represent all people whom they were elected to represent. And that is what I'm doing. I have definitely talked with many neighbors and other King City residents who are, like Councilor Manella said, in favor of the King City Master Plan. I've also talked with some who want to build a bridge across the river with 131st. So, right, it's all over the metaphorical map, some of the suggestions that we get from our constituents. So I do thank all of you for involving yourselves in the years-long process. And it's unfortunate that some of the people who do reside in King City currently and are in favor of the plan chose not to put their comments on record. But I don't want anyone to think that we are not aware and we haven't communicated with members of the public as well. So I do want to thank all of you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to agree with everyone here. We did just give everyone a chance. We have had open forums, had opportunities like us at some point to kind of make sure we had everyone, and I received a lot of emails. I got emails and I forwarded them to the central body that was kind of handling all the comments that were coming in. And like everyone else is saying, I've also been engaged in the community with people asking me questions about concerns and all of that. And one thing I always say, we're all in this together. I mean, if we're not like in any way trying to say we have different camps as to who is going to be part of the race to get to the finish line, or who all is just not just going to be in the same lane as to where we're all going. Change is always a challenge. I mean, no matter how you look at it, change is always a challenge. There will always be concerns, there's always going to be fears and everything that you can think of, and the benefits, I mean, the pros and the cons of change is always something that everyone needs to know that we as human beings will have to deal with. And on the city, we did a great job in terms of hiring the consultants, in terms of having our experts to take a look at everyone's comments and suggestions and everything else. We did our best. I mean, again, it's never going to be an ending situation if we keep going. And at some point, we need to grow. We're growing. No doubt about that. When I moved to the city in 2009, it was about 2,500 people. Now we're double that population, right? And as people continue to graduate from school and getting jobs and moving out of their parents' home and getting their own homes and all of that, people are living longer today. Parents are living, and people have to go find their place and live even to their parents are still here as they graduate and get jobs and move into the Portland metro area. We have no option than to make plans, and that's how we've been planning all along. We don't want to get to a point where we'll just be caught off guard and then we're now running cramped and trying to make plans, and at that point we'll have a lot of issues. And that's how we've been doing this in the last 5-6 years now. We're trying to make sure that we cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and turn all the stones, and listen to everyone. And we'll continue listening to everyone. We're not trying to say we've taken deaf ears and we're going to listen to. If you have your points, bring them in, and we can have this opportunity here to come up to the podium and tell us how you feel and what you feel. And we, as a council, will do our best to make sure that we do what we can for the city and for everyone that's living here. So again, we really appreciate your patience, appreciate all the input. And again, we're doing all of this together, and we ask that you work with us and just bear with us as to how we handle all of this, because again, no one knows the actual outcome of all of this, and so we're working based on the information we have, the facts that we have, the research that has been conducted, and everything else that's been going on into this. So we really appreciate everyone's input, and we just want to let you know that we're taking them into consideration. So thank you. Appreciate it all.
Thank you. Dawn?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. So I just have a few just general comments that I've been thinking about. So this is so many years of work by staff and all of our amazing consultants, which we really appreciate. Plus, we've had great feedback from our community, which was important. Many changes have been made in the plan along the way to continually improve the plan. And I think we now have a template for the future that we can be proud of. I'm also excited to see a plan that encourages a true variety of affordable housing, because that was one of my main tenets of coming on to council, was making sure that King City can continue to be and added to its possibilities for affordable housing. Kingston Terrace is a beautiful area. I think we can all agree on that. And I think we will do, as a council, everything in our power to protect it as we go forward with this master plan. And that's my main goal. So, any other comments from council? All right, I call for the vote. Is everyone ready? Okay, call roll, please, Mike.
All right. Mayor Fender, can you chime in on your phone?
Yes.
Councilor Paulson?
I vote yes.
Councilor Shirley?
Yes.
Councilor Manellis?
Yes.
Councilor Thompson?
I'm abstaining, and I'm abstaining because I voted no on the CSP. I just don't want any confusion over my stance on the CSP. I know some community members are confused about the difference between the two, so that's why I'm abstaining.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Councilor Petrie?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. One abstention.
Okay, do we need to do a second reading, Mike?
The council says we've already conducted second reading at the beginning.
Okay.
Good to go.
All right. So we are completed with this item on our agenda. We will now move on to new business.
And I apologize, everyone. Can you guys hear me for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I'm going to have to run. I'm late for a bridal shower, so I would recuse myself from the vote anyway this evening regarding the Planning Commission. So my attendance going forward tonight is not needed at this point. So I apologize. I'm going to run to the bridal shower, and I thank you all for your time tonight. Talk to you later.
Okay. So our first item of new business is appointments to the Planning Commission. And Mike, did you have some comments you wanted to make on that?
Sure. We have two people that have submitted for the Planning Commission. Both are returning members of the Planning Commission or have served on the Planning Commission previously. One was Commissioner Annie Paulson, who's been on the commission for the last 6 years, around 6 to 8 years now. She served with King City, done an admirable job as the chair of our commission, and just recently her seat expired in June, and so she applied for re-up on that, and so we're bringing her application back before the commission. The other is Gretchen Boehner, who was a previous counselor and also a previous commissioner. Both have been reputable contributors and volunteers for our commissions and councils, and so both come with staff recommendations for approval. And that's another reason that we went a lot of the in-depth interviewing process is because we already knew these candidates and we know their background and their education, and they've already been appointed to these bodies previously.
Okay, thank you. My suggestion would be is that we deal with the candidates individually, so we'll have a vote on each one. Do we want to have a little discussion or any comments before we go to a motion?
I just have an overall question.
Uh-huh.
So the Planning Commission requisite or opening was posted, correct?
That's correct.
Within, and then any other applicants received?
We received one application, but it wasn't complete.
Okay.
So we tried to reach out to that person and get through them.
Okay.
So that's where it is today. It's still open until filled. We still have 2 seats open.
Right. I just wanted to ask that with a previous comment during the open forum that, you know, A, I guess it thought maybe it wasn't posted, and B, there was more, but we're not getting applicants, so, okay.
If I can add, I received as a community member an email in May stating there were vacancies. So, I mean, we've talked about this before, right? How to get the word out more. So I think that now that we, can focus a little bit more on municipal code and some processes and procedures that we identified for this year, we can start that work on procedures for, appointments.
I think also, Mike, you have a record of all the outreach that has been for the openings, you know, when we sent them out, how often we sent them out. So all that information is available for anyone who would be interested to make sure what our efforts were to actually do that. So that it's public information that can be obtained for those that are concerned about it. Generally speaking, I have to agree with Mike's comments. Both of these, I worked with both of these women on the Planning Commission, and I think they're excellent candidates. So, does anyone have any other comments? Okay, so let's go for do I have a motion first for the appointment of Annie Paulson?
I'll make a motion to approve Annie Marie Paulson to the Planning Commission.
Okay, a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Councilor Moore. All right, let's go to the vote. Do we need, I think, a roll call for this one?
Sure.
Okay.
We have discussion.
That was all.
I think, Councilor Paulson would of course have to recuse himself.
Yes.
Yes, I will
And,
recuse myself for
Mayor
this.
All right, fair enough. Councilor Thompson,
Yes.
Councilor Moore,
Yes.
Councilor Sholey,
Yes.
Councilor Manel,
Yes.
Councilor Petrie.
Yes.
I have 5, 0, and 1, with 1 absent. Won't be included in the vote. The motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention.
We'll go on now to Gretchen Boehner. Do I have a motion?
Oh, I was
Annie didn't have a chance to say anything. So.
She had dropped.
No, she's on the,
Oh, she is? Oh,
Well,
she's on the,
I didn't.
oh, well, we didn't go.
Oh.
I could allow her.
Oh, that's okay. Well, since we didn't for her, yeah, okay. Is there a motion for Gretchen?
I'll motion.
Okay,
I motion to appoint Gretchen Boehner to the Planning Commission.
okay. Second? Second from Councilor Osholi. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for appointing Gretchen Boehner to the City Planning Commission.
First, Councilor Paulson online.
I vote yes.
Councilor Sholey.
Yes.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Councilor Petrie.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Great, we have 2 new members of the Planning Commission. Great. All right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yes. Okay, the next new business concerns the Metro Intergovernment Agreement for the West Side Trail Segment Number 3 for us to talk about, and a presentation from Mike.
You may be aware, because I've talked about it before, but King City was awarded a regional flex fund account grant through Metro. Part of that is an intergovernmental agreement on how we manage those funds for the trail design and engineering. This will not complete the engineering, but it will get it started and get the first element going on what kind of features the West Side Trail will contain. So what kind of park elements, what kind of trail elements, and what kind of interactions. Maybe there's a river access, a boat dock, maybe there's a kayak launch or something to that effect. Maybe we have a electrical hub where people can plug in their electric scooters or electric bikes or what have you. Maybe there's kayak lockers. this is the first step in that planning process. So, this is step one of the entire engineering and design concept. It includes the initial survey of the strip. It includes some community involvement on what we'd like to see in this linear park area. And so this is phase one. And so what we have before us is a standard intergovernmental agreement by Metro. Our legal counsel has reviewed it, they're fine with it. There's still this is still in draft form. So what staff is asking is for authorization to execute the intergovernmental agreement and send this back to Metro and get our authorization to proceed.
Okay. Conversation?
This is the trail under the power lines, right?
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah. There's also a scope of work that King City has completed and sent over. That scope of work is attached as Exhibit A to that IGA for the back, so you can kind of review that and see if there's any other elements that you think we need to start including. The problem is that looking at all the tasks and services that we've identified to get through the engineering and design, at least get to 15% engineering and design, is already like $350,000 or so, and there's probably another $300,000 left to get us to that initial 30% for permitting and everything else. So this is just phase one, getting us ready to submit for permit.
Right.
But then after permits, we still have another basically a whole nother half of this project to get to the 30% engineering component.
Remind me, what's the match that we're getting for this?
So the match is 200,000, and then we're putting up 150. So it's over a few years, so it'll be, 50,000 here, 50,000 there, but, and a lot of in-kind contributions on our staff, on time, energy, and then our engineers as well. So, but it's still costing a bit, and we have some of our ARPA funds that we can reallocate now that we're going to the park, that can now go to this, now that, now that Rep Neron helps us out on that front, and we can reallocate that 130,000 to this project, and we're still doing trails within King City, which is designated for. So it's great for us as a good first step, and it's the first step that needs to be taken in a long line of steps to finally get us across the finish line and hopefully get a finished product.
Realistically, what is the timeline for a finished product?
It kind of depends on funding. So my guess is this is not going to be a high tier project for funding, but we could still apply for like Connect Oregon grants. We can apply for other regional fund grants. We can use our Parks Bond Fund that was part of the Metro Regional Parks Bond. We can use a number of other resources to get this funding in place and get these things going. The other thing is there's federal funds because of the bridge that they have going across the Tualatin River over to the Heritage Pine site. So there's a chance that we might be able to take our little piece once we get some design going and then pile it together with some larger federal grants to get the connection over to Heritage Pine and provide opportunity to get into the Tualatin Wildlife Refuge area as well and provide pedestrian and bicycle access on the side. So there's some real opportunity here to expand this. There's opportunity for the city of Tigard to expand their end and go up Bull Mountain and get over to Progress Ridge as well. So this is a regional trail, so it's part of the regional transportation system plan. It's in the RTP. So there's a lot of elements that are playing here, and it has the potential, if we get this thing started, to really garner some speed and start picking up funding opportunities to get it actually realized. So if I'm looking at a timeline, I would say 5, maybe 10 years.
I see
Yeah.
15% design created and submitted to Metro for review, is expected to be completed in June of 2027.
Yeah.
So,
It's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
Our guess is that it's going to take a couple of years to get through all the community involvement pieces, all of the design components, the engineering on the ground, the cooperation and coordination with the utility companies, both the gas pipeline, Bonneville, PGE, Northwest Natural, cable, fiber. It's amazing what's in that corridor, and it's gonna take a lot of cooperation. So I imagine it's going to take us a couple of years. It's a couple-year project. And, you know, we looked at, it's gonna be very similar in size and nature as what we just completed with our master plan, but more detailed, right? So a lot more finite details on how many park benches and how much asphalt are we actually gonna use? Are we gonna use permeable asphalt? Are we gonna use concrete? Are we going to use, is there a horse trail? You know, are there horseshoe pits? Are there swing sets? Is there a dog park? You know, all the things that need to be considered and hashed out in community forums, and those inputs and everything taken into consideration throughout the development, those are all in this first step, so.
Right. This gets us started.
Yeah.
This gets us started.
This gets us started. And as you say, the more things that we do and can show that we have done, that's when we can get more money, because that's, everybody wants to see something concrete in terms of planning and something that they can actually look at before they want to give you any more money. So this is where it
They're
starts.
shovel-ready projects.
Exactly.
And so, taking that initial leap to get your project shovel-ready ends up getting more successful bids for legislative dollars. Like, we took the initial leap and did the engineering for our park trail, that resulted in some legislative dollars. We take the initial leap here, and get this initial engineering piece done on the West Side Trail segment, that could lead to, as Councilor Petrie mentioned, more opportunities for grant funds. And if we can pool those grant funds together and get them piled onto one another, we can get a lot of resources moving.
And refresh my memory, this was also for the purple water line kind of integrated into the project?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the purple, but that's a different project, but it would be integrated into this development.
So we can use it
We
for,
would be able to use the recycled water line as a environmental friendly option along that. There's also the opportunity for linear wetland enhancement from East Bend all the way down to just north of Fisher River Lane, there where the current wetland kind of reverts to the west, or turns to the west, goes under a culvert under the road. So there's opportunity for linear enhancement there, corridor enhancement, things of that nature.
Commissioner or Councilor Thompson, do you have any, not Thompson, you're here. Paulson, do you have any comments you wanted to make?
I do not have any comments or concerns. Thank you.
All right, Councilors, any further conversation? Okay,
I just have to say I'm excited about this whole
yeah,
project. It was one of the reasons I wanted to start getting involved in the local government here, is because I saw that vision and that need for that connectivity of all the trails and parks, and so I'm personally just very excited about this.
so do I hear a motion?
yes. Yes.
Are we supposed to be making a
Yeah,
motion?
that was my next question.
Okay.
We need a motion to authorize the negotiation.
To authorize city manager to execute the
Right.
item.
Is there a motion?
I'll motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute the Metro IGA for the West Side Trail.
Is there a second? Second by Councilor Moore. All right, let's go for a vote. I think we can just do a hands on this one. All those in favor of this? Any opposed?
Councilor Paulson, it's up to, so
Okay.
6-0.
So no opposed? All right, motion passes. Exciting. Okay, also going on into new business, we have the extension of a personal services contract for our comprehensive municipal building service program.
This is our building codes department through Claire Company. Claire Company's been with us for longer than I've been here.
Yeah.
And they do a great service here at King City. They're very on the spot when it comes to permits. They're responsive to our customers. They're, I haven't received more than a handful of complaints the entire time I've been here, and most of the time it's glowing reviews. So, they're here, they're working for us on a daily basis, processing King City building permits throughout our area. They're really a reputable firm throughout the state of Oregon. If you'll recall, a few years back, the state of Oregon passed their third-party building code standard, which requires that the city employ a building official. We were grandfathered in under previous conditions. However, I myself am currently identified if there's an appeal to a building code issue. So then I have to go down to Salem and do all the trainings for the building official, which takes a long time. And eventually, hopefully, I can pass that off to somebody. But right now, it's squarely on my shoulders, and Butler Company has been a valuable asset to have in our corner throughout this building code process. And they really do a great job for the city, whereas some of the other agencies around here might take 2 to 3 months to process a building permit. They're usually processing it within a couple of weeks. So hats off to them. They do a great job. I recommend that you approve the contract extension with them and keep them employed here with us.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question about the dates. What happened between 2020 and now?
COVID.
Oh, that!
Yeah, so the agreement that we had, I think it expired in 2020, and then it just went on a month-to-month.
So we've still been working with them the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just went on a month-to-month based on the situations that I put out. So, I mean, the contract itself just continues, but the term of the contract technically expired at this point, and, you know, it's best in these situations to have a current contract.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I know it's a little after the fact, but it's always good to have it in place for future renderings.
Well, I would like to move that we approve the extension of personal services contract with Claire Company.
Okay, motion.
Second.
Second by Councilor Thompson. Discussion? Any discussion? I think they do a great job.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can just do a hand vote for this. All those in favor of the motion? Hands up.
6 for Councilor Paulson.
Councilor Paulson. Okay, no opposed. Okay, motion passes. All right, and that is it for our new business. So we go into reports. You guys want to take a 5-minute break here? We'll just take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back.
I'm doing well. Get up.
Any questions during the break?
Yeah, I mean, just me.
Hi, Lisa.
9 years between all this.
Hopefully you got us back, we're back.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Oh, okay,
That's all you, Lauren.
all right.
I've never seen anything like it.
Okay, I think everyone's back, so we'll reconvene council. And next on our list of items is police chief's report.
That's you, Mr. Ernie.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. I was making a report.
I was making this a little short, because I know this meeting is going to go really long. But, first, our lexical manual is complete. We just completed it today. The year of my life has never come back. But it's interesting. It's a great experience, and it's a great experience for Brian to go through it. The rollout begins next week, and how we roll those out is we roll them out in blocks and to the officers, and so they get emailed starting with 10 policies, and then they have to acknowledge it that they've gone. There's 160 policies, I think. So by the math there, you can see how long it would take. Hopefully they go through it pretty quickly. I'm kind of urging that so I can maybe double it and cut that time in half, to where it gets rolled out that way. Because there's also, the very cool thing about Lexipol is that they also provide the legislative updates when the new laws are passed. So there's constantly some training bulletins that come out, and there's always their best practices, from a federal, state, and local level. So it's interesting. Stay tuned for that. We'll see how that turns out. Some of you may have seen, we're kind of starting a bit of a rebranding with a color change of vehicles here in King City. We had an opportunity to purchase 3 new-to-us vehicles that you'll see Brian and I have, and then so those are black Explorers that are outside. We also had an opportunity to purchase the Tahoe, which will be a multi-purpose vehicle for city use and also for use for the officers to travel to or from wherever certain training is done. And so it was an opportunity with money that was left over in our budget from the previous cycle. With the new cycle, I had to hop on found out that cars, and the cheaper of all the cars was the Dodge Durango. And so it was due to go up another $5,000 in September. So I had to jump on purchasing a 2023. And so we just did that with the money that's been allocated for this budget cycle. I was just going through the numbers, and I looked at one. We have the white Fords that are out there. It cost me roughly about $42,000 to outfit. That's purchasing the car and outfitting it. It's now looking at it's like $55,000. So it's just a massive jump, and they keep making these $5,000 jumps.
But even with the cost of vehicles going down, it's still
the cost of vehicles aren't going down; they keep going up, and that's the weird part that I was just going to talk about. Is that now when I'm talking to other chiefs here close to us, is they're going to start purchasing the electric cars that we talked about before, and where those costs are astronomical, and I'm like, I don't know how you guys can. Per car.
Yeah.
But there's also these cities that have way more.
Because I was pricing electric vehicles, and I was looking at one, and I negotiating some numbers, and it was $10,000 below MSRP.
Yeah, so
slowly.
Yeah, and I just read a report on that, I believe, yesterday, that the pricing of the cars is starting to come back down. So I hope that when the next cycle comes around after this, that they're going to start going down again. Because it would be nice to maybe be able to dive into the electric market, but I'm going to let somebody else figure it out first to see, because obviously there's got to be some infrastructure changes, right? And doing all that sort of thing.
That's part of that grant we got, right?
Yeah. So, it'll be nice to have somebody else kind of knock the dust off of it a little bit and get it figured out, and then we can kind of piggyback. It's kind of been my way of doing business for a little bit, is let everybody kind of figure it out for me, and then we just kind of come in and clean up what we want and get rid of the stuff. The only other thing I have that just popped up recently is Measure 114 is back on the radar, and so that could have a potential impact. We won't know until the state judge out of Harney County rules on it, and Sean, I don't know if you knew, I think he's at September when he's ruling on that, I'm not sure.
I don't know the date that he's.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when he was gonna rule on that again, so it's still kind of on pause. Obviously, it has an effect on us here in the city, because the permitting system that they're looking at, they're trying to clean that up a little bit. So whether we end up doing it ourselves, because to be honest, it costs of the permit versus the amount of work that we have to do, those numbers get closely working out, and so the correct way. Because the state is gonna take 75% of the total to go to OSP, so it's less than, I think, than what we get when we do passports. So we'll have to see how that measures out. Also, back to the cars, White Tahoe, there's one of the white Dodges, and we're gonna be selling those 2 cars. And, to just help with a little bit of money there. And, I was driving a 2007 with 125,000 miles on it, and Brian had like a 2013 that was actually, held him captive here a couple weeks ago, where the door wouldn't open. So he couldn't get out of the car and stuff, and so there's just all these little things that started to show up with these cars where it was kind of like we had to make a move, and I actually, in joking, we bought the 3 rigs from Tualatin, and I said, I saw these 3 cars, and I go, what are you doing with these? And they're like, we're gonna sell them, and I'm like, so they made a great deal to the city. And, something that we were able to capitalize on, and help us with our switchover that we're doing. Just a little, just a couple of years. I'm back. We're in the 20 teens now, so at least for me anyway. So it's one of those that like I said, the new stuff goes to the team, and we'll take the stuff that's a little bit older. But anyway, that's about all I got. If there's any questions.
I have a question. Yeah. How much is the fee going to be to register for guns?
The original number that I saw was $65.
75% goes to the state?
It's a lot. I want to say it was like at least $45 or $50 of it was going to go to the LSP, was just going to snag. And it's like, we're the ones that are doing all the paperwork. And then there's also a demonstration you have to do that's still part of that measure, where you have to have somebody actually manipulate a firearm. So that's actually, we have to purchase like an inert gun that, they would have to show how to function a firearm. So it becomes kind of a labor intensive deal for a little bit. Now, how many permits are we gonna do? It's really not. But, because we'll only do the ones that are from the city, and the rest of, that are outside have to go to the sheriff's office, or if they live Tiger. So it's not enough. It should be twice that amount.
What about unincorporated?
They go to county.
And, I just looked it up, it is September, and you were right.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. September rang a bell for something.
I think it's interesting, because if a federal judge already ruled that it's legal, then why is it still in a?
Because he has to rule on the Oregon Constitution. The state judge goes to the Oregon Constitution, and the federal judge went on the federal Constitution. That's the.
And I know that somebody just filed an appeal on that federal decision.
Sure.
It's just, it's gonna run all the way there. In October, when the Supreme Court comes back in, I'm sure it's gonna find its way.
Get their radar,
They have to select it as one of
Yeah, even if they do, which they seem to have been kind of hearing some of those
Right.
and stuff, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Thank you. City manager.
All right. So, before we get going, I just want to give a shout out really quick. Dan Brenner is still online, so hopefully Dan can pass this off to Mr. Meyer. I just want to give Mr. Meyer credit where credit is due. We were joking around about it in the lobby, but when it comes to the 99W and Fisher intersection, he was one of the very first people to point out the fact that what the intersection really needed was 2 left-hand turn lanes and not 2 right-hand turn lanes. So give credit where credit is due. Dan, you can pass it off to Mike Meyer, if you wouldn't mind, that I gave him props for that one. And, he should get a good laugh out of it. But anyway, moving on to, other things that are going on. Next week, we have our, CDC amendment and, municipal code amendments coming before the planning commission. And it's a pretty heavy document in the sense that it's really dense reading because it's code language, right? It's legal code language and how that applies. And so we continued the hearing last month over to July 26th to allow for our consultants to catch up on the Title 13 component that wasn't quite finished and wasn't quite ready to be included. And instead of taking two processes forward, we thought it best to take just one process forward. So now we've got the Title 13 section completed in pretty decent draft form at this stage. We have our Goal 5 safe harbors built in. We have our annexation process. One of the elements that we do not have is a lake and wetland inventory, which is part of the Goal 5 safe harbors. But what we've done is we've set it up in a manner in which before anyone can annex, they have to have an acknowledged lake and wetland inventory of the land that they're trying to bring in. So our understanding that suffices the state and regional requirements. But we will want to do a lake and wetland inventory of the entire King City area from 99W all the way out to Roy Rogers Road at some point in the very near future. And so I was talking with a rep at Department of Land Conservation and Development yesterday. I used to work with this gentleman, his name is Patrick Wingard, and we were talking about what kind of grant program DLCD has available. And it sounds like they have two options available currently. We're going to try to look into those a little bit more, but one was a technical assistance grant. And one of the things that Patrick was talking about was the possibility of designing a grant application that integrated housing and wetland. So wetland and housing integrated together in a manner in which the wetlands are protected and taken care of, and also provide for some housing opportunities. And so I think that there's some technical assistance funding there, if we package this correct, that will also help us pay for our planner position that's open right now as well for a couple of years. So that's the other portion that I wanted to bring up to you. I guess it's a good segue is we started our planner process a few weeks ago. We had about 58 applicants. We narrowed that down to about 20 to 25 Zoom interviews to do an initial screening. We had some really good candidates and a really deep pool of qualified candidates. It was really hard. I've been working just this last week and a half now on trying to narrow it down to my top 5.
That's a great problem to have.
Amazing.
And admittedly, I've failed. And I think I settled with 6. I think I'm pretty comfortable with the 6 that we're trying to narrow it down with. And so I'll be reaching out to those 6 as well as the others that we had done the initial screening interview with to let them know they're not selected to move forward, and then the 6 I'll try to schedule interviews for. But I do have a few dates that I would like to throw out to the council. If any of you would care to sit in as a panelist on these in-person interviews, I would really appreciate it. The first one is Monday, July 24th, so right around the corner. Next one.
What time of the day are you looking at?
Maybe morning.
Actually,
Let me just. Go grab it, I guess, so I don't give you the wrong date. Yeah, I think it was Monday morning, Thursday, the 27th, in the morning. So it'd be 9 and 10 on that Thursday, and then on Monday it'd be 9, 10, and 11. And we also have the dates of August 1st and August 3rd as potential morning shots. So they'd all be morning because a number of our staff here also work morning shifts. So getting our police chief or our police lieutenant on board needs to be at morning. So if any of you are open for
Possible I could join the 27th, but.
Yeah, that's the only day I can join. I
Okay.
could do either of the July, not the August.
Okay.
Or I could do August 1st.
You want planning commissioners?
I mean, yeah, yeah.
I've done these kinds of interviews.
So I think everyone has my email. I'll email planning commission and city council, tomorrow morning, let you know dates and time. And if you would like to sit in and make it to one of those interviews, I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll do a panel interview. The structure is going to be set interview questions that we grade our responses.
Yep.
And tally at the end, and then we move forward. So I look forward to that because huge relief hiring said person, and really will help our agency and our department grow. So some exciting times and some really good candidates.
That's great.
I think you'll all be very
That is
impressed.
exciting. Really exciting. Cool.
Other than that, we have the West Side Economic Alliance, Scramble is next Thursday as well. So I'll be running out of the interviews on Thursday morning to go to that. I already said July 26th for the Planning Commission. Our August 2nd City Council meeting has been pushed back 1 week to August 9th. And to address notification requirements for the system development charge methodology. So we should be in compliance now. The system development charges, essentially this is the methodology as well as the capital improvement list, and from that will come a set system development charge. Right now, they're recommending a hybrid of the two options. One is the maximum defensible cost for the capital improvement funds, the other is the minimum defensible and what they think the minimum would be. And so I think they're projecting somewhere in the middle, which puts our system development charges in line or just under River Terrace Boulevard, or not River Terrace Boulevard, but River Terrace in general, Tigers one, and below Hillsborough, below Frog Pond. But I think we're maybe higher than one or two of the others. So I think we're right in the middle with what we're proposing right now. It seems to be something that's viable. We're also looking at the option of a sliding scale on the system development charges based on square footage of the unit. So if you have a smaller unit, then the system development charge would be less. If you have a larger unit, the system development charge would be more. So there's some components, some elements in there. This will be presented to the Planning Commission, just as like a cursory review on the 26th as well, and then presented to the City Council on August 9th for consideration. On this particular item, it doesn't require a full-blown legislative process like what we've done with these land use pieces. These are legislative land use items. This is a straight legislative issue. So it just basically goes straight to the council. We're taking it to the Planning Commission as a convenient and nice element to present to the Planning Commission for their consideration. But their opinion or recommendation doesn't really get accounted into the ordinance and like we do with these other elements. And figure out a clear way to say that.
I'll ask a question. Why do we have a meeting, why is that on the 9th and not during our city council meeting the following week?
on call.
That would be a good reason.
So is there a council meeting after that I need?
And then when are we gonna receive the information about that?
Should be next week. You can actually review it, in the planning commission packet, which should be out this evening.
Okay.
That's what, Mr. Smith is working on right now. Trying to get that out, because we got the final documents from our consultant, right around 2-3 o'clock. So we're trying to scramble to get that done, scramble to get this going. Par for the course for the month of June and July. So.
And then, follow-up question to that, the same day that you sent us an email about that meeting, you sent us one about the street projects that need to be approved, but there was an attachment that I wasn't able to open it. Was that something that we're supposed to be able to do?
That's the other reason that we had to move the hearing back, because the RFP for the street project closed on August 3rd, and they need authorization to move forward.
Okay.
So we had the system development charges were going to go forward on August 2nd, but because the RFP notice was out and that closed on August 3rd, I didn't feel it was prudent to have a council meeting on August 2nd and then another council meeting on August 9th. So we looked to see about moving the system development charge methodology 1 week later, which complied with everything that it made it easier for us to meet our notice guidelines and everything else, and just brought us further into compliance with what we were trying to accomplish on that front.
So that'll be on the 9th as well then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll have the RFP contract award and the system development charge methodology on and off site.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up. It's all like jockeying around in there, but.
You have a lot to remember.
Don't know how you do it. Don't know how you do it.
That's all I have.
Is that it? That was a lot. Okay.
It's been a busy couple of months.
Okay, well, Mayor is not here, as we know, so does council have any reports they'd like to
Does Micah want to go first?
bring forward? And Micah? Counselor Paulson, is he still with us?
No, I think he dropped off.
He
He
dropped off?
said he was gonna drop off.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I have a question while we still have Viva here. Circling back to your comment during the public testimony portion about getting a high school student as an intern for the planning commission, how would that work with the planning commission meetings being during the school day?
Well, hopefully they would work with they would get credit for it. And.
But how would they get here?
Zoom, too.
Oh, over Zoom.
I'm thinking hybrid meetings.
Yeah.
Make
Yeah.
it even more accessible.
I like it. Okay.
And, I know, and she's gonna back me up, I think it's the small cities has a program on how you do that. You would have to change the city charter, am I right, the code, so that's, I said code earlier, to include that. So that you would have an additional, and there's different ways, they can be advisory voting.
I know there was something Mayor Fender was looking into too, so, yeah.
Talking about it.
Right,
You know,
right.
they have a permanent, youth member of the Tiger City Council, and
Yeah.
they participate fully in all the discussion, and they give an advisory vote. They vote with the rest, but it's an advisory vote as opposed to being.
I think that's kind of what Mayor Fender was looking
Yeah, I think
into.
that's what she
Yeah.
wanted. But I think she was talking more council than.
Correct, I think so.
Well, initially, we want to do both.
Yeah.
But it would be probably easier to start with a youth commissioner, and then everybody gets comfortable with how this is going to work.
Right.
And then it kind of, I think, a year or two, then it'll be ready to.
Maybe that person can graduate
When
up.
I
to-
asked 7 years ago, Gretchen then corrected me that, Dina, there's a plan, and it's easier if you start with the planning commission. Because I asked back then that, at the time, there were 4 boys on the line, and the football team was small, and that's what I said, the big lug. And then we had a big kid from the Grand Marshal that was, and I thought, oh, another big lug, and here he is, 7 years later, and he still can't be, we still haven't done that.
So is the first step changing the charter? It sounds like.
You're gonna need to change the code, and I don't know.
Definitely need code.
Yeah.
You'd have to make some amendments to the muni code, what that is.
It's very simple to do, really. That is not a huge piece. I mean, I could write
It's not that big.
code
Well,
for you.
you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you can copy what somebody else, another city has, and tweak it to meet ours, and it shouldn't be it. But then we just have to get it on the agenda, and that big thick thing has gone on the whole time that I've asked, and somehow it's had priority.
And I don't, no, I mentioned this at the last city council meeting, when I came up and testified. The gentleman who was talking about the noise ordinance, on the 4th of July, I don't know if you guys were listening, the noise coming from the west end of town was echoing through the older part, and my cat was crying and under the bed. I mean, it was really noisy at 11 and 12 o'clock.
Yeah, we have a dog that does this.
And I think we need to, as a city, tighten up our code. And the question is, should we follow the?
I think it's just more noise.
Follow the
Yeah.
decisions of a lot of cities in the metro area of just outline stuff.
None of those fireworks we hear are legal.
No, they're not.
I mean, they're legal in Oregon, these sparklers.
You can't even have a sparkler anymore.
All right, well, I apologize, sir.
I just wanted to raise that I really think the gentleman and I have brought it up. I think it's something that we really need to look at. I don't know if you care about it. It's something I'm worried about it because it's getting worse. I mean, we've seriously had the full-blown fireworks shooting off in the middle of Fisher Road, you know, like they have at Cook Park.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate
And
it.
that's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, when I lived up on the hill, we had house fires started in our neighborhood because of that.
So, counselors, do you have any reports?
Oh, I thought you
You got off track a bit.
Just wanted to say that the 4th of July, Walk and Roll Parade was awesome. It was great to have that and have that back. And I thank all the volunteers who worked on that. It was fun. I rented a golf cart this year. It was a big splurge, but it was just a funny and fun thing to do. So, we might do that again next year too. We don't know.
You were wonderful in front of my house.
And that's the only update that I have. for
Okay,
now. Thank you.
all right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the 4th of July parade was great. Thanks for having that back again. And I guess just, the staff thanks for working on the master plan and now the hard work begins. So, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, great effort there. I mean, we have people come from outside of the city,
Mhm.
they were part of the parade. And one person kept asking, are you just have fireworks? Are you going to have fireworks? And I said, no, we don't have that going on right now. But, again, kudos to you and team, great job, successful outcome and successful event. Thank you. For me, I don't have anything to report because I still don't have that information regarding during the meeting or getting the report. So I reached out to the lady that took over from the one that retired, and she said she would try to have someone add me back to the. I don't know. Are you getting anything, Mike? Are you getting the report?
For which one?
The water.
I got something, I don't want to say like last month, but I haven't really had much more than just there.
Yeah. The last time I go was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So they have a new person because the other lady is retired, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Who
probably.
retired, she.
Yeah, that was the last thing I got.
Mhm, yeah.
Okay, so, I knew it wasn't anything recent.
Mhm, yeah, that's all. All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Okay. Well, I always have reports, so, but I'll concise it down, just a few lines, basically. So I went to the JPAC, which is the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, and as I think I mentioned last time, they did approve or recommended to Metro that the 2023, our draft RTP be released to the public, that's been done. But one of the, I didn't get a chance to tell you what the comments that the committee was making about it, and that what they were concerned about a lot of missing information that staff was still working on. So they're hoping that they'll get that information because they have to have this, the federal guideline or deadline for the RTP is December. So they don't have a lot of time to get this together. And then there were concerns about funding for all the programs because of the gas tax funds going down. So these were the committee members commenting on what's going to happen next. They also discussed the MTIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program draft, and they're looking at spending $1.3 billion in capital investments, maintenance, and planning, assuming that they have the money, right? Okay, so that's JPAC. And then on MPAC, there were 3 discussion items in June. One was the community placemaking grants. I think we talked about this before, which is basically, it's a grant funds that are driven by the arts and culture projects with an emphasis on equity. They're going to have about $200,000 that they're going to be granting out with requests from $5,000 to $25,000. So the next application cycle opens in August. And I don't know if we have anything that would actually qualify.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we used the community placemaking grant to do the art.
That wall.
Right.
I don't think so.
What was it?
It was a different art one, because we applied for that community placement grant for
It was CARES Act one.
for the community foundation. We were only, we did a grant and everything, and I went to a couple of those meetings.
Yeah.
And we do have some things that we could use it if we got a group of volunteers together and write a grant.
So and the focus, just, yeah, and with the placemaking grants, really has to have an equity component to it, so that's what you have to be careful about. The projects are either changing a community space or they're safeguarding a space. So, and I don't know how much that applies to us, unfortunately. So then the Transit-Oriented Development Program, this supports the high-use corridors with funds, gap financing, buying land. So they're working on that. And they're working on the urban growth because they have 2024 cycle. They're trying to get all their ducks in a row for that. They're doing some modeling or trying to put some models together on how they're going to encourage development of middle housing, which is something, and how do you get the developers and how are they going to react to the zoning changes that everyone's making? So the trick will be to how we can balance supply and demand as well as the pricing challenges to get these different kinds of housing going. We're too early for this, but we're going to be seeing how everybody else is going to be doing it and hopefully can learn from what they're done and their mistakes. So yeah, those are the things going forward that are being watched by MPAC. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? No, I think we're done. Oh, do I have a motion to adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
A second.
I will second.
A second by Commissioner Thompson. All right. All those in favor? We are adjourned at
Now that you're officially
7:15.
I did a major report on the 3414 debacle, which traumatized cities and counties.